Andrew, is this the biggest ever episode of We're Live, pal, that we're about to have in the history of the show?
We got the biggest biceps in professional wrestling media on, so yeah, it has to be the biggest show that we've done for We're Live, pal.
We are welcoming Dave Meltzer onto the show. We're going to take some super chats with Dave, so if you have any questions, as I said, the only question you cannot ask is how many Ultimate Warriors that there were. If you want to ask Dave pretty much anything, send us a super chat. We'll put it in the Q&A. Dave, what's going on?
Just working on the issue like usual. There's a lot of there's a lot of interesting things coming off of last night's show, and we'll see kind of where they go from here.
Okay, I thought last night was awesome.
Most people did.
Yeah. The one thing, and Andrew's a little bit younger than me even, but I was kind of interested in what you guys thought, because I was watching The Rock very closely in that last segment as he was beating down Cody. I sensed, as somebody who has bad knees myself, I was like, oh, he's he's kind of walking around gingerly here. And it made me wonder, the guy is, in his early 50s, but he's got, I don't know how much he weighs.
He's 51, and I don't know. I mean, I'm going to guess he weighs closing in on 260.
I know when he looks every bit of it.
When he was at his biggest, I think he was, bodybuilder biggest, not pro wrestler biggest. When he was a football player, he was much more than 260 as a lineman. But I think when he was at his bodybuilder biggest, he was 260-ish. And he would tell me that he was 220 when he was acting. I thought he was actually lighter than that, maybe 215 to 220. So yeah, it's a lot of this would be in the early, the early stages of his acting career, when he was trying to, and how he got that light. He must have eaten very, very carefully and everything, but he had gotten, if you guys remember, he'd gotten very, very light, still muscular and still worked out hard. But he wanted to not be so big and overpowering on the screen until he started doing the action figure thing. And then we did the action figure thing. He went completely in the other direction. I mean, just crazy.
Yeah, it worked out tremendously for him too, because he's never been a bigger star than he is today. Probably, the last couple of years, I would say.
I mean, and since the Fast and Furious franchise, I mean, I think that took him to a, and then Hobbs and Shaw, I think, and all that. But all those movies did giant box office, yeah.
But did you see the same thing that I did, which is he was sort of being very careful in his movement?
I can't say. I was watching, and I was, it was like, it wasn't a red flag by any means, but I did see enough to go, he's 51. You know what I mean? He's 51 and he doesn't move like, 35-year-old or 30-year-old, and he's not going to. But I, I have questions, on how he's going to do. But I also know that he's smart enough and they're smart enough and everything like this, that I have no doubt it's going to be a success. I mean, he's not in there to do a Will Ospreay match or a Bryan Danielson match. He's out there to do something different, and he will do, I believe he will do just fine with it. But I mean, as far as like, are you going to see the quickness that you saw, when he came out of college football and everything like that? And it's like, no matter what you do, nobody in the world is going to be as quick when they're 51 as they are when they were 28, 26.
Now, I want to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt in that it was raining outside and he was wearing hard bottom shoes. So I imagine
that doesn't help either.
Yeah.
The chance.
So somebody, I asked this morning, someone over there, and I said, because I noticed it too. He wasn't really, somebody said to me, he was moving like he was in the video game WWF No Mercy. Or it was like kind of like robotic.
The old game.
And you know what I noticed? That when he hit Cody with the trash can, he was very stiff. And I asked him, like, ooh, he was moving stiff. And he goes, dude, he's wearing loafers. Yeah, there's no, he doesn't want to fall. And this was someone that was there. So I don't know. I hope that's the reason, because he looks, it's actually, that final boss moniker that they've given him is so accurate. He really looks like he is the final boss of a video game. He's gigantic and cartoonish in all the best ways. And I felt that this was a very different show compared to, even 6 months ago. It was very different. The verbiage.
It's very talk heavy because we're going into WrestleMania, and long talk heavy because you've got between Punk and McIntyre and Rollins and Cody and Dwayne. You've got talk. I mean, they're building the whole show around talkers right now, and and because that's where the strength is. Even with Rock gone and WrestleMania being over, I think that I just know when I do recaps of the show, it is so much different because I'm recapping talk segment and talk segment and talk segment, and the matches are, it used to be the matches were and the talk segments was kind of like even in the sense the talk segments were important, but matches were important, and now the matches on Raw seem very unimportant. When you discuss the show afterwards, and it's the talk segments, or in the case the angle at the end of the show that are the important stuff. And I mean, people don't even remember the matches the next day; they just remember what people said in the interactions and words in the thing and insider terms and things like that.
I actually wanted to ask you this because you've been tracking this for decades, and coming from the Attitude Era, you had 2-3 minute matches that nothing happens, interference, and that was kind of the flow for most of Monday Night Raw. It was very quick hitting matches. Regarding sustainability, right? Is the sustainability in talking segments over long matches, or is it to do a blend of the shorter matches? Because what this is saying is, the modern audience, the modern WWE audience, doesn't really have longevity for a 3-hour show to have long matches. And we're seeing that now where they're going more talk-based.
It depends on the performers. You go to the strength of what you have. If you've got good talkers, do a lot of talking. If you got good wrestlers, you can do longer matches. I mean, they did the Ricochet match was long. I mean, it was interesting. Jey Uso and Nakamura in the main event spot was very short for a main event, but there's a reason for that. I mean, it wasn't the main event. The main event was the brawl afterwards, which went really long for that type of a thing. But I mean, the deal is that they want Dwayne on as much minute by minute time as they can get him on, because they know that those minutes he's on, people are going to tune in, and it's going to be higher, and it's going to be more entertaining. And the one thing that's happened though is that he has overshadowed everyone, I think, except for Cody, because Cody's the rival, so he's been brought up, I think, by Dwayne. But everybody else, Roman Reigns is much more secondary than I thought going into this WrestleMania. And everyone else is they're just guys on the show. I mean, I think McIntyre's done a good job, and Rollins. But everybody else, to me, is just guys on the show, and Rock's the big star by leaps and bounds now.
What do you think about the variety of that show, though? Because, like you mentioned, you have like the stars, and the Cody segments when he's actually talking. Those seem to do really well in the ratings. Almost always the peak of the show as well.
Yeah. Well, they put him at 9, and 9's going to be the peak. But yeah, I mean, Cody and Punk are definite draws as far as guys. Roman Reigns is a draw. Rock's a draw, and the rest, it's just the segment you're put in. Some people, if you put Candice LeRae in, the audience will drop during that segment, but it's just going to happen. But those, to me, those are the ones where I really see noticeable difference. I mean, it's very much I mean, there's a base audience, but there is very much the few stars that really move the audience right now. A few on each show. Yeah.
But it does seem like the stars are in the biggest angles and they're doing the talking, and then you're putting on a wrestling match underneath. Because when I went to Raw, gosh, when was this? Last month, I think. I think there was like 2 or 3 really good actual wrestling matches in the mix of the talking segments. And the show seemed to flow fairly well. But I mean, kind of going back to what Andrew was saying about the Attitude Era, when the talking segments, you'd open up Raw and it's like 20 minutes of talking. It seems like the wrestling is a lot better, and they've kind of tried to balance it out. Like, do you as you watch Raw today, do you think it's a better show because of that?
Well, it's a better show because you got better talkers. I don't think it's like a, you know what I mean? It's like, it's all dependent. The show is dependent on the quality of the people you feature. If you have all kinds of good wrestlers, you can do long matches, and it will be okay to a degree. I mean, one of the things that has happened though in the last, I would say 3 years is because of the preponderance of great matches on television, like nothing ever in the history of wrestling in this country. It's like, eating Kobe beef every day. You know what I mean? After a while, it's like, I mean, at first it's great. After a while, it's like, well, this is just whatever. It's like a great match. I mean, I just remember like when AEW first got on the air and they would put on this great television match and the audience would spike. And I knew it wouldn't last forever, and it doesn't now. I mean, you could put on the greatest match in the world and people will just, it's like, it's how different is it from the other greatest matches that we see? So the great match, and it's same in WWE now. It's all, I mean, look, with spiking in most cases, occasionally you'll get a world title match on Raw that will help the third hour. But they don't overdo that. But most of the time, you look at the 9 o'clock and the 10 o'clock and the opening segment, and those are the 3 big segments of the show, and along with the final segment. But the final segment is never expected to be one of the highest rated ones. It might this week because of Rock, but the 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., if you watch most of the time, you're talking about interview segments now.
So as we get to the Super Chats here in a second, I did want to talk about this CM Punk and Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins promo. Now, Punk said, we're not on Netflix yet or something, which I think Andrew and I both took to, when they go to Netflix, is it possible that they're going to get a little bit more edgy with the language? Andrew, did you think the same thing?
So I've been getting that vibe, that we're going based on a vibe. I've been feeling that they've been doing this. So I reached out, today, and I had a conversation with somebody there, and they answered every question that I had, including stuff I didn't think they would, except for, hey, are you guys going TV 14? So it kind of makes sense where they've been going the last couple months.
I'll ask that this afternoon and see what it gets.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. I mean, listen, the Edge. I don't want them to be cursing and yelling.
Yeah, Netflix is a long way away, and any decision on Netflix will probably change 15 times between now and January anyway.
Yeah,
because the company's constantly changing. So, but I mean, I would expect it more edgy on Netflix just because of the nature of what you're on. But no one has directly told me that. What happened last night, I mean, that's Dwayne. I mean, Dwayne's going to do what Dwayne's going to do, and no one's going to tell him no. I mean, for anything, he may have to negotiate a little bit, but he's doing what he's going to do, and it's very clear. And there's some people who resent the fact that there's a double standard, but it's just like it's always going to be that way. It's the same way in movie. It's not like this is a wrestling thing when it comes to him. I'm sure he gets a lot more of what he wants in a movie than the other co-stars. That's just
listen, he's the star. He's the attraction. Totally the attraction. But Punk said BS on the show. I mean, they censored him, right? Yeah. They took it out. He dropped it. I thought that Drew McIntyre Punk moment,
and Drew immediately, was like, "Hey, dude,
not on."
But I mean, it's obviously like, Punk's going to get leeway too. Cody's going to get leeway. McIntyre will, although I don't think he's used it. But those type of guys, it's really interesting to see. It was Cody more in response to Rock. Rock obviously getting whatever he wants, and then Punk and everybody else. I mean, like nobody else is going to do it. And that every LA Knight and everyone like that, wants that same leeway. And in time, we will see who gets it and who doesn't.
Drew specifically used the word canceled on the show.
Yeah.
And I think he even mentioned the rating of the TV show in another thing in a response.
He mentioned when Punk said something and he just goes, "We're PG, brother."
Yeah. I guess, what I would like to see, because I think being crass or edgy for the sake of being crass or edgy is not helpful. In this case,
no, in the long run, well, I just like I say, does it hurt? And I think in AEW it's hurt, but AEW is also very different from WWE in the sense that WWE's got a what's the word I'm looking for? It's got a base, it's got a history, and it's got a standing where it can get away with a lot, whereas AEW has a more critical fan base, and it is a secondary group, which makes it only a certain percentage of the audience is going to watch because there's so much of the primary group. And because of that, it's like things that you do, sometimes you reach, but when you reach, you're turning off, certain parts of the audience, and it's like, I can see, the one thing that I've noticed, of late with AEW is that, the decline or the lower number of gross viewers of Dynamite from months ago is not fewer homes watching AEW. It's fewer viewers per home. And the dynamic, the male and the female and watching together and all that has always been something that AEW had that did great in from day one. It was actually amazing how great they did. And now they're normal, so that says some people have been turned off by, whatever it is. And they've toned down. They're not doing as much blood, and they're not doing, but once it's done, it's like, it's tough. But doing that stuff does have an appeal to guys too. So it's like it's a balance. Like if you go too far, you will lose some audience, but at the same time, you will, I think teenagers will go up if you go really far. But if you have to also be cool, if you're not cool, it doesn't matter what you do. But if you're cool and you're edgy, it can be very good with teenagers, especially with younger adult males and everything. And when you're uncool, though, that audience is going to drop really fast too.
Yeah, the usage.
The cool factor is number one. Yeah, the cool factor is number one. And you look at WWE, and for the longest time, they were not cool. They fell off on that coolness, and now the last whatever month it's been or year it's been, the trajectory has changed.
I think it started with the Bloodline and Sami Zayn, and it's just gone up and up and up since then. With just Roman Reigns becoming like a bigger and bigger star, and the rise of Cody Rhodes, who's incredibly valuable to that show because he's there. He's one of those guys that's carrying that show week after week after week. Roman Reigns is only here, on SmackDown for, whenever sporadic shows, and the reality also is that they are not going to be getting the television audience they were getting when SmackDown leaves Fox. It's just not gonna happen unless they just explode or Dwayne's a 52-week-a-year guy on SmackDown on USA Network, in which case, all bets are off.
Yeah. All right, Andrew, did you want to dig through some of the questions that we do have? So we
let's do this.
Get the time to do that. And folks, if you have them, get them in. We will get through. If we start now, I think we can get through every single one of those questions. So,
all right, let me see this one. Here's one. Did it pop up? Did it? How do I take this live?
We're live, pal.
We're live, pal. I don't know how to get it going.
You want to read it?
Our producer maybe could. Yeah. Okay. Our producer's doing it. Hang on. I think I have it in. It's not reading it. Okay, great.
Just that you start reading it.
Okay, here's one. Here's from Danny. Many veterans say that one key to wrestling is to maximize your minutes. As a company, do you feel AEW has maximized theirs?
AEW, it's a very weird situation because my answer is no. And the reason my answer is no is because there's so much political stuff going on. They just get hammered for so many things. So they do a lot of things on the TV to satisfy some people that are not maximizing their minutes because they are not with the top people. So, my answer is no. If it was all about maximizing minutes for excitement and maximizing minutes for, commercial appeal, I think that they would be doing different than they were doing. I mean, it's not, and that's not a criticism at all of Tony Khan. I mean, there's things to criticize Tony Khan about. Don't get me wrong, but um, it's a weird aspect of the current wrestling fan base that if you don't do something, it's like it's bad and it's wrong. And sometimes that thing that they want is not necessarily a thing that is going to maximize your minutes.
I got another one here from Robert in the chat. Mr. Meltzer, why do you think WWE can release talent all the time while AEW seems reluctant to do so?
That's just the owners. WWE does what it's going to do, and Tony Khan, in his mind, his situation is that if I sign you for 3 years, unless you do something, major bad disciplinary, you're here for 3 years. Whether I use you or not, I'm going to pay you for the 3 years. With WWE, it's like their feeling is that we got to make talent cuts because we got to keep our profits up. And if we're not using somebody, and we don't mind him being outside, some people they wouldn't let go because they don't really want them outside. But I think there's less and less of that now, as far as that fear of handing someone to someone. It's just a difference. Like, you sign a 3-year contract with WWE. And if you're a top guy, I know one top guy, I'll just give you an example without mentioning his name. He was negotiating a deal not all that long ago. And, he's a top guy, and he wanted the deal, got the money that he wanted, and then, or close to the money that he wanted, but largely, definitely satisfied with the money. And he asked for the 3-year deal to be, guaranteed, no cut, right? Because there are guys in the company. And it was just like, no, we're not going to do it. But we will never cut you. But it's weird that they will say we will never cut you without, and they won't. The guy's too high on the pecking order. He won't be cut. But it's weird that all you're asking is that you want that deal, basically the deal that you're promised, guaranteed for the time that you're signing for, and they would not do that. There's very, very few people they will do that with. And with Tony, it's like he has the right to cut, just like WWE in the contract. He has the right to cut anyone at any time, but he's just not going to do it. We saw it. It's just he said it, and I haven't seen one example yet of someone who was cut, while having an active contract without a reason, a very significant reason. And significant reason is not, well, I'm not using you, and a significant reason is not, even your performance isn't great. It's a disciplinary reason. If you're
getting into a fight in Gorilla, how about that? One?
Yeah,
that's a pretty good reason.
That's one of them. Yeah,
Dave. Looking, this is my question, right? Looking in hindsight now, right, for AEW with CM Punk and the way that he exited and the way that he entered into WWE in this tremendous way. Would it have been the better decision to keep trying to make it work with him, or just keep him at home and keep paying him?
Yeah, but man, it's millions of dollars a year. You could still offset some of it with merchandise.
And use them for a pay-per-view every once every quarter or something. Don't put them on TV. Just utilize them in that way.
The thing is they tried and they tried and they tried, and I think that once I think once Tony made the call to resign, and not just resign, but give fantastic offers to Adam Page and the Bucks and Omega and bring them back, I think the writing was on the wall at that point. It's not anything of like now that they're in for years, we have to get rid of Punk to keep the cohesiveness. It was nothing to do with that. It was just that I believe that he expected that because he was the bigger star that he would win the power play. And then it was, and at that point, you make demands and make demands and make demands. And at some point, it was, that whole run of Collision and everything, like when he wouldn't let Daniels backstage and some of the other things that happened, it was so over the top anyway, but Tony did let him get away with it. But then the thing with Jack Perry on, this biggest show in the history of the company and everything like that, and what happened and how it happened. And they have a disciplinary committee, and there is footage, because there were cameras backstage. We'll never see it, but whatever they saw, it was just, it takes an incredible amount for them to have fired him. So, I mean, it had to be like, no question, it had to happen.
Somebody said to me, they were like, how could Tony do that? I'm like, you think that was an easy decision for Tony? I mean, that's an investment. That's a major investment that you're selling off to your competition. You're giving him away.
You're giving him to your competition. It's going to help your competition for sure. And, I mean, at the time they didn't know if WWE would take him, but I mean, over the course, like, even if they didn't take him then, over the course of like a year or two or whatever, it's inevitable it was going to happen. I mean, if you know wrestling, it's like, even if everyone goes in WWE goes, oh my God, look what he just did there. We're great. We're doing great. We don't have any issues, and we certainly don't need him. The reality is he was still going to get a chance because that's how wrestling works. And, so as far as, it had to be an incredibly difficult decision to make, and it had to go so far because, realistically, the thing that happened in Chicago, that would have gotten anyone probably but him on the entire roster. I mean, maybe him, maybe if Jericho did it, he could have gotten away with it. I don't know, but anyone else that would have started a fight in that situation, they'd be gone, no questions asked.
And the wild stuff. Gary, do you want me to continue doing these?
Yeah, why don't you?
We get to your guy? Okay.
I think I can
you can take it over.
I can take over at some point, but keep
Okay, got it. Here's a question from Brett. Okay, he said this is a dumb question, but it's for my dad. So why not, Dave? Was there ever a point that Jim Powers filled in for Kane at a show?
I never heard this.
I've never heard of that.
I don't.
That's why I asked. I thought maybe this is
Jim Powers is like 5'10", and Kane's like 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah.
So,
Those are some lifts he had to put on.
Yeah. I've never heard it, and that sounds ridiculous to me.
Oh, there we go. We got that one up. Perfect. I think John did that, not me. All right. Here's a super chat from.
Were they even around in the same era?
I don't think so.
They're years apart anyway.
I don't think so.
No, they were like
Jim Powers. Last time I saw Jim Powers was like 96 WCW.
Right, but he was out of WWE, before that. And Kane, I think, wasn't Kane's start in was it the Hell in a Cell
97?
Match? So 97, yeah. So I don't even think they ever even. I don't think
unless he was Isaac Yankem.
Yeah, but I don't. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I would. This question sounds ridiculous.
You hear that, Brett?
It's from his dad. Yeah, it's from Brett's dad.
It's from his dad.
This is why I said no. Multiple Ultimate Warrior questions, because that's the casual
Dave
stuff.
For once and for all, were there multiple Ultimate Warriors? This is a question that the wrestling world has wanted to know for all these years.
No, but there were attempts to make people think that there were with what was it, Rio Lord of the Jungle, when he was the Ultimate Surprise and all that in WCW, Renegade Warrior.
Renegade.
Oh yeah,
And Hogan came out and said it is not the Ultimate Warrior. Remember that? Hogan in Hogan's promo.
But at first they wanted you to think it was. I mean, it was 100%. They wanted you to think it was.
Those vignettes were definitely. He was like in the shadow, right? Like they showed just the shadow of him, and he was like pumping his arms.
Yeah,
classic WCW move. Here's one. This is a super chat. Dave, would you rather see the Bloodline win the tag match on night 1? I close it out. So we get Bloodline rules for night 2 of the main event, or would you rather see it clean, no interferences for the match for night 2?
Doesn't matter what I want to see. I think that's what it's going to be. But yeah, I mean, to me, for future business, if Cody's going to win on night 2, I think that he should lose on night 1. And have overcome even more odds on night 2.
Stack
I think some drama. It stacks the deck and adds to the drama when he prevails. But also, Cody should do the job the night before, because once he's champion, and it just depends on whether Rock or Roman would be his next, schedule wise. He should lose to one of those two to build up a bigger championship match, because Cody and Reigns has to happen again. but to me, the biggest match that the company can do is Cody against Rock, with Cody defending the championship. If they do that wherever, if it's next year's WrestleMania or if it's wherever it could be, to me, that's the biggest match. That singles match is the biggest match the company can do. And so the correct booking to set up that match is Rock pins Cody night one.
That has
to be it. Next.
I mean, it's amazing. We got 3 matches, right, out of this? We got Cody Rock, we got Cody Roman, and we got Roman Rock.
Yep. I was actually just writing all about how, all the plans that they had that fell apart ended up being better for them in the long run because they have way more longevity. If it was just Rock and Roman and they just did their match,
who's gonna take credit for all this business when it's all said and done because of all the changes?
Well, what's going to happen is that in history, they're going to say how brilliant they were because they're going to claim that this was the idea from the start and that Rock and Roman Reigns were never going to have a match. And that this was just them manipulating the whole situation. And a lot of it.
Yeah.
And some of
it, sure.
Some of it was too. I mean, again, like, why did Cody win the Royal Rumble? I mean, there's a reason Cody won the Royal Rumble. And, so this thing is not, I mean, like when the whole thing was going down, it was like I was seeing it and I heard and everything. And it's like the fan reaction, it was like, it wasn't what they were expecting, but they certainly were like people going like they're trying to screw Cody. It was like, no, this was all about building Cody, whether it would be later, and it was going to be later. I mean, my gut is that he was winning the championship very soon after, from whoever. But he was, the Royal Rumble win, I mean, it ended up, there was a moment in time where he was going to wrestle Seth Rollins, for a couple days. That was absolutely there. And that fell apart when Rock decided that they're going to boo me. I'm going to be a heel. And if I'm going to be a heel, then we need a baby face. And that was Cody. So, that the big beneficiary was Drew McIntyre out of the situation. And he's done very well in that position.
It's wild. A bunch of series of events, right?
It always is, but this year more than most. Yeah, more than most.
All right, we have a Riho question. What does Dave think to the claim about Riho being a draw and then it nosedives when she's in the main event? I love AEW, but how can they make it more captivating overall? So technically,
some people are I've said this over and over and over again. Okay, some people are main eventers and some people are not. And when you put people in, Riho is not a main eventer. Riho is a great freaking wrestler.
Yeah.
And you put her on the show in a dramatic match, and she's not a great ratings draw, but I have seen at times what she has done is she is a draw with younger women, probably, and most of the time women wrestlers are not necessarily draws with younger women, but she is, whatever it is. I mean, people kind of, whether they, see this little woman against these bigger women and how much fire she shows and how dynamic her stuff is, it works. But she's not a main eventer, and Willow Nightingale's not, not a main eventer, and people like that. And when you see them, people who are not, when you put a match that is not a main event in the main event position, it will nosedive, especially with AEW because and WWE both. For Raw, I would say. Not necessarily SmackDown. SmackDown has a different ratings pattern probably because it's on network, I'm guessing. But it just does. Like if you put the wrong main event on Raw, which they don't very often because they know this, if you look, most of the time, and actually last night was the exception, in the sense that they didn't have the giant stars in the main event. And I thought, luckily it's daylight savings time, which changes the pattern a little bit, but that Jay and Nakamura in the main event, I thought that would be bad. But in the end, as Rock goes all over the place, and so I'm sure that they counted on that, and I'm sure that they ended up being, right. I'm sure that last quarter probably did really well. But you have the wrong people in a main event in AEW more than any other company. And yeah, that's what's going to happen. Just how it is.
All right, from John, this information just came out today, so good job with this question, John. Dave, with the NFL playing on Christmas this year, which is on a Wednesday, do you see AEW moving Dynamite for that week?
That's an interesting question. I don't. I would say if they had the ability to do so, but if they go to Tuesday, they'll be hurt worse moving to Tuesday, going against NXT, than they will be hurt going against the NFL. So Tuesday's a bad idea. Thursday, I don't know. I think switching dates of the week is more is going to hurt more than the fact that they're going to take a hit going against the NFL on Christmas Day without a doubt. But it's
Christmas
just,
they'll take a hit anyways, just for it being on Christmas, right?
Yeah, of course.
Because they're not the NFL or the NBA, where
Christmas is a big day. The NBA may take a hit with the NFL though too.
Oh yeah, they are definitely going.
It used to be that.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. I'm curious how that's going to play out.
Didn't that just happen last year? Where because Christmas was always the NBA's big day, and then the NBA really got hurt by the NFL this last Christmas, I think.
Christmas is a Wednesday this year, right? Is that what it is?
That's the reason.
So TBS runs the Christmas Story marathon all day.
So they may get
bumped. Maybe they are getting bumped.
Maybe they're going to get moved to the weekend anyway. Yeah.
The ironic thing is the NFL and college football are in a little bit of a situation because college football, historically, they've had Saturdays until a specific time frame, and the NFL wants to edge in on those Saturdays. So the NFL's just going gangbusters on every other sport right now. So
yeah.
All right. Cadillac Carson says, Dave, what was the first match you saw that really got you into watching professional wrestling, and why that match?
It wasn't a match. It was just watching the television show with my friends and the promos. I guess the build, for what was coming up at the Cow Palace, which was the key focus of the show, got me interested in some ways and looking at the results and everything, but it wasn't like a specific match. I was already into it before I went to my first live show and saw the matches.
All right.
Can I add a follow up to that? Okay, because I'm always fascinated about what was like for me, right? Obviously, it wasn't a match that got me into it. It was more the spectacle of seeing Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior, 1990, 1989.
Exactly.
But what was there a match when you were younger that you said, "Oh my gosh, like I see it beyond just on the surface of being a TV show"? Because for me, it was being at SummerSlam '91 and seeing Hennig and Bret Hart in that IC title match. That was the moment. I mean, it's like I woke up as a kid. I was 7 years old or whatever. I was 8 years old, and I saw this unbelievable display of wrestling, and it was so different than seeing like a Hulk Hogan match.
It's funny.
It woke me up.
I watched that match. I thought that match was great, but I didn't think that match was any greater than so many other matches that I was watching.
Isn't that wild? I thought it was unbelievable.
But the thing is, I started watching Japanese wrestling, which was so far above the United States, regularly in the early 80s, and I'd seen stuff in the 70s even from time to time. And I'd seen Florida stuff and everything, and I'd seen Ric Flair, in these incredible matches. And so it's funny because I know that when Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat did their match at the Meadowlands, so this is I think 84. And I just remember all the magazines were just, "This is the greatest match of all time. It was fantastic." And all these fans were just like, "Never seen anything like it in my life. Oh my God, the greatest match in the history of wrestling." And I watched it and it was like, every Ric Flair Ricky Steamboat match I've seen dozens of times, and not even the best one,
Okay,
but it was
can I tell you something about that?
Yeah.
Because I'm reading the 89 Observers. There's a note. It's right before the Clash of Champions match, where you had a report from a house show, and you said that the report from the house show said way better than the Chicago match, nearing 6-star territory or something like that.
Was that the Landover?
It may have been, but it was a house show match.
The Landover house show match, to me, when I saw it, I thought that was a different level. Yeah. But the thing is, they were all great. I remember seeing clips of Greensboro match, and I got the old all that old Mid-Atlantic house show footage stuff, and the stuff with Flair and Steamboat every night. It was just incredible when Flair was younger and he was more versatile and the crowds were so much hotter. I mean, it's really something to see. But yeah, I mean, it's still, I mean, I don't know that I ever saw anything in the United States at the level of Saruta and Tenru, when those guys were really going at it. I mean, the first time again, when I first started watching the Japanese wrestling, and part of it also is that the TV show had all the main events and our TV was all squash matches. So of course it's going to be way better and you have like higher quality of wrestlers. Yeah. But, I mean, those classic matches at Budokan Hall, I mean, it's just different level, it was just way different level from anything in the United States at the time. I mean, I was just writing about, because your thing is in 91. I was just writing a bio today, or yesterday actually, and a little bit this morning on Chigusa Nagayo. And I remember, when I saw her for the first time and the All Japan women for the first time, and they were even better than the guys. And, it's hard to say, but I mean, I remember, and guys would admit that. Some guys would, I mean, Bruce or Brody would, but most of them, a lot of the guys just thought, it's women. They're not really wrestlers or anything. They're 135 pounds, blah, blah, blah. But I just remember Bruce or Brody going like, they're better than the guys. And, and I started watching them and during that Crush Gals and Jumping Bomb Angels and, era, it was phenomenal stuff. Just, I mean, the women wrestling in the United States, which has just improved by leaps and bounds in recent years, they're just coming up to the level of those women from 40 years ago. And they're still not at the level of the women from 35 years ago.
All right. From Card Pros, any word on
30 years ago.
Any word on where Suzu Suzuki is signing, and is she the best 21-year-old since Rey Mysterio?
Oh, she's great. I like Azumi too, who's even younger, but she got so much poise. Suzu Suzuki, as far as of everyone's belief a few days ago, is staying with Stardom. I mean, it could change, but I think it's that was the belief. I've asked about it specifically with many people, and even though she's not coming on the Philadelphia show, as far as I know, or she hasn't been announced yet, but the belief is that she's staying with Stardom.
All right, from Betrothed, and this person did pay for this question, so I'm going to ask it. Can you ask Dave why he blocks so many people on X? I would actually disagree and say
I don't block enough people.
About 99%.
I don't block. You have to be really disrespectful for me to block. I mean, it really takes a lot. I mean, most people say I should be blocking a lot more.
Supposedly he said he disagreed with something and wasn't disrespectful, and boom, gone. Sometimes you just get caught in, which is why I almost never get in arguments on Twitter with people I enjoy, because what's the line of sometimes people from a distance can't tell who from who. Like, I I would just suggest don't get in arguments on Twitter, and you won't.
I would not do it if it's being disrespectful, unless it's just something. I mean, I hate to say it because now he's going to get offended, but if it's ultimately at a level of stupidity that I just don't feel like dealing with at a moment, I could do that, but that's even rare. I mean, it's very much just, and I don't even block people who are disrespectful right away, because I always have this heart thinking that, like, well, there are people who were very disrespectful to me, and this is a very rare, but they have in time become very good friends with me. So, and because of that, it's like I give everyone far more rope to hang themselves than in 98% of the cases they deserve, because of the other 2%, where it's proven that being nice does help, and they are people who also will learn, and we both you both learn. You know what I mean? But people who I will say that people who, if you discuss something and give them facts and they just refuse to learn, that's a waste of everyone's time, not just mine, but everyone that's on Twitter looking through this stuff. It's just like, life's too valuable to be arguing with people who, like if they say something and I go, okay, here's the facts. And it's just like, if then they just go and completely ignore it because, some moron has told them something different. It's like, okay, no time for you.
All right, I don't think you actually know the answer to this, but I'll post it from Matthew. How old is Espresso, and what breed is he? Was he a rescue? I think you can answer some of that.
I think he's a miniature pincher, and I don't know, 7 or 8 in that range. I don't know. Garrett, you would know.
I've known him since.
I mean, you've known him since he was
2018 probably was when I first met him.
Okay, 2018, so that's 6 years ago. So, yeah. I mean, when you met him, he was only a couple months old. So that would make him 6.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. This is funny. Where does Dave have US Express ranked all time?
On tag teams? Not in the top 50, even though they're a good team. But if I had to make a list of the 50 greatest tag teams of all time, they wouldn't be in the top 50. No. Top 100, probably. Yeah.
When Spivey replaced Wyndham, you had a nickname for that version of the team. Do you remember what that is? I don't remember what it is, but I just remember there was a nickname when Spivey replaced it.
Yeah, because it went way down. Yeah, because Barry Windham was phenomenal, and Spivey ended up being good, but he was still pretty green at that point. Really all Spivey had going for him was that he was, tall and had blonde hair and looked like a guy you could fill in the Barry Windham shoes in every way, but the wrestling, I suppose.
I think it was like the Boredom Express or something like that. If I can remember. But this is when you were a little bit feistier in the newsletter back then.
Yeah, he was very feisty in the newsletter. My cousin was a subscriber. He would bring him over, and I would read them.
Oh yeah, it's the best. It's the best. From Omega Man, is AEW the best thing to happen to WWE?
Yes.
I
Absolutely.
agree.
It forced them to improve. Yes, no doubt about it.
And
if there was no AEW, we would have a very singular style of wrestling that would not have evolved. And because of AEW, it had to get more. They had to concentrate more on other aspects and compete. Yeah, it's definitely the greatest thing for WWE.
I remember doing the podcast, and I think we were very newly on F4W, the fight game podcast that I do with John LaRocca, and we may not have been on yet, but our thesis statement was we want to cover AEW from the beginning very closely because the hope is that it also, at the same time of just being good wrestling, it also kicks WWE's butt and gets them in gear, and then you have two good promotions, and it's kind of what happened.
That is what happened, but when that happened,
well, AEW suffered a little bit for sure.
It's really tougher. It's really tough for AEW when you got the number one promotion that's this hot. It's just really, really tough. You could put on, it just is. Yeah.
And I guess similarly, outside of, someone passing away, is Cody going to WWE like the worst thing that happened to AEW?
Him staying was going to be difficult, though. But him showing up in WWE was, yes, I would say it's a singular move. It was the worst thing. Of all the things that happened, you're going to say, what's the worst thing as far as hurting AEW and helping WWE? It's Cody, because Cody became, night in, night out. He's the biggest star in the company because the other, the other two or whatever are very much part-time. I mean, he is the guy, and you take him out of the mix, and they would still probably be doing good. And he wasn't in that original Bloodline feud with Sami Zayn. But once that thing ran its course, Cody's really carried the ball. So, yes, Cody's really smart when it comes to certain, the idea of playing superstar wrestler. Boy, is he great at that.
Yeah. Just to note to the audience, we're going to stop the super chats at RVD is cool, who just sent in the last one that we're going to be able to get to. We're going to try and rip through the rest of these. From Lone Wolf. Andrew, this might also be for you because I'm not sure I know what he's talking about. Did anyone catch Punk's joke when he said, "My mouth still works well. We're not on Netflix, and April knows what I'm talking about"? Andrew, is that
that was in the beginning. That was like one of the first things he said.
I thought that might have something to do with something that she is doing. April, of course, being his wife, former AJ Lee. I thought it might be something that she was doing that might be related to Netflix. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Exactly sure what that joke was about.
I mean, if you're gonna take it just like quickly, I would take it like, oh wow, they're gonna get a little bit more edgy on Netflix. Maybe there was a conversation. Maybe he was reprimanded for something he had said before. I don't know. I found that in this entire show last night to be really. I mean, I watched all 3 hours live. I haven't done that in a very long time. And I was captivated. I was interested. I was watching it. I thought the Rhea segment was good too. So I think they're working their way somewhere to something here. And it seems like they're going to become more of an edgy product. I think it's fine if done well. I mean, we saw the holy S chants, right? That were getting censored every couple seconds. That was the main reason why they wanted to go TV 14.
That's the fans, though.
That's so Lone Wolf, but that was WWE's reasoning. So I think Lone Wolf's question is, is this alluding to that? I would say maybe a little bit, yeah.
So this is where my head went, and that may say something about me, but Lone Wolf tried to answer us. Joke explained. He's saying he's good at oral sex. That's what I thought he was talking about. So maybe not.
And maybe.
All right.
And maybe.
All right, let's go. Chris Cage 2X with Naomi using the Heat Seeker and Rhea using the Better Than You line. Are these clues as to MJF defecting from AEW to WWE? And is there injury time added on to MJF's contract currently?
If he is under contract, they would have the right to. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. Hang on here. Do you think Kosha Irby, is that correct?
Kosha Irby
will have a good impact on AEW moving forward. He has quite the resume, and I hope he can make changes to live events. Oh, that's the COO?
COO.
Yeah. Hope so. I mean, time will tell. He's been there for, they just sent out the release today for reasons I don't know, because they confirmed his name to me, in January or in late March. So he's been there a couple months. I know that it was going to take time. I mean, the one thing I was told is that, like, when it came to the live events, because so many of them were booked ahead of time, that it would take time to transition to his vision, which, they were hoping would be better, and time will tell. The problem though is it's like, there are some cities and some markets, and I mean, when I did that pay-per-view breakdown state by state and things like that, it really hit me that there are some states that AEW is really popular in, and some states that it's not. And it's almost like there's some of these states you should avoid, because when they go to those states for live events, they don't do well. So, but they did. There's still a situation where it's not a hot product, and Kosha, he is not in the position to make it a hot product unless he comes up with great promotional ideas on a local market basis, and and that's involving wrestlers with the community and things like that, and I haven't seen any of that yet, but time will tell, and that's easy to say, but it's much harder to do. I don't even know how you do it now, because the nature of local media is local radio and things like that. It's so different from when I learned watching, people in different sports operate when I was in college, and how they locally promoted sports. And then later in the 90s, watching, Zane's ideas, because he Zane Breslov pitched everything to me and just told me, how he promoted concerts and how he promoted WCW and all those things, and since he's been gone, I mean, there's been nobody who's done anything that way. But at the end, even with Zayn, I remember the last couple of years of WCW, he had all those ideas and he had all the local media behind it and everything like that, the local DJs and everything. And it wasn't working anymore because it was WCW and the product was cold. There's nothing you can do to sell tickets to a cold product. And when you have a super hot product, you really don't need a great promoter to do it because the TV does it on its own.
Yeah. All right. From Frank, I'm a Juilliard-trained actor in New York. It used to be a lot easier to work your way into the business. What would be your advice for me?
I mean, the first thing to do is just go to your indies, your local indies, and volunteer to do all kinds of work. And if you want to be a wrestler, train to be a wrestler there, and get a look. I don't mean steroids, but just get some, get your body in shape and train really hard and all that, and work on your promos and travel and try to get on shows that are, like especially if there's the Triller shows or something like that, and just do something to stand out. Because that's the people who stand out on the indies are the ones that, whether it's and it can be talking. But the weird thing, I mean, on indies, it's really more about the wrestling. But when it comes to the big companies, the talking is so much more important. And then you got that problem that you've got these guys that are great wrestlers coming up that are not that great talking, and it kind of stifles their growth. And it's like, I know, like when AEW started bringing these guys in that were very athletically talented, I remember I would just think, like, give them a freaking promo coach, because, especially now, because we're freaking loaded with talented athletic wrestlers. But the ones who are going to make it to the top are the ones who are going to be able to talk.
All right, let's get through the rest of these. Broadway Joe, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills over this WWE praise. The two hottest angles for WWE going into WrestleMania are for matches that aren't happening.
Yeah, Rock against Cody.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen. I would presume afterwards. So, and so maybe Mania is not, I mean, this is what's interesting this year. Last year, I mean, like, Mania often is the end of stories. And this year, it's going to probably be the end of the Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns story, but it's also going to be the beginning of the post Cody Rhodes story. So, which is actually a good thing, that you are blowing off a world championship story in theory that you've built for 2 years. But at the same time, it's not like, okay, we've done the story, now let's start scratch. I mean, the theory is to come out of that thing with, not just for Cody, but for everyone, come out with a bunch of new stories and angles and start start building new stuff. Yeah.
All right, Dave, have you ever had a drink with Ric Flair?
Not alcohol, no.
You know who you have had a drink with, though.
As far as have I had a drink of juice with Ric Flair? Yes, but never alcohol.
You did have a drink of alcohol with Wale.
Wale, yeah.
Wale. The infamous Wale. Yeah, Wale Mania.
Okay, two more. With the success of the Iron Claw, do you think a movie or series about the Hart family and Stampede Wrestling would be feasible?
Yeah, sure. Just someone to do it. There's very unique and incredible stories on that. Although still, if it was me and I had to pick one story to do a movie on when it comes to that, it would be the Dynamite Kid, rather than the Hart family. I just think that I have so many scenes in my head of different things that happened, with Dynamite. And it would obviously involve WWE, and it obviously involve life after wrestling and things like that. But I think it would be a absolutely gripping, story. And it would not be a story that portrays him in a great way, but at the same time, it would portray him, his wrestling as being, so important as far as the future style of pro wrestling, but the Dynamite Kid as a person would not at all, it'd be a real Jake LaMotta, but much worse. type of a movie. But yes, I've always thought like Dynamite Kid movie, with Brett as one of the key figures in that movie, that just this whole thing of, Brett being, Dynamite being so much better than Brett, when they started. And then all of a sudden, by the time his career is over, and they're essentially the same age. Dynamite's actually younger than Brett by a year. That Dynamite's career is over. He's done in wrestling before Brett ever even hits his stride. And then Brett goes on to be, one of the iconic superstars of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And Dynamite, who was better, younger, and, all that, ends up in a wheelchair. I just, I've always thought that like a movie, that movie could be really, it probably never happened. But I've always thought that that's a movie that could be really good.
All right, last one here. This is from RVD is Cool. Dave, I'm going to my first ever WrestleMania. How big is this event compared to other WrestleManias with this tag match?
I mean, I feel it's the biggest WrestleMania. From a mainstream standpoint, I think that it might be the third biggest, maybe. The first one will always be the biggest because the grip it had on the country that day was unbelievable. But I think as far as viewership goes, more people are going to watch this WrestleMania, is at least in the United States, by far than any WrestleMania in history. And I think I feel it's bigger than the Rock and John Cena and the Donald Trump WrestleManias, which were the biggest pay-per-view WrestleManias of all time. The two Rock and Cena and the Trump one are the three biggest. And I feel that this is between the 2 days and everything like that, and the company being much hotter. I think this is much bigger than those.
Pop culture wise, you and I talked about WrestleMania, the first one kind of being the biggest one. 3 and 5. How would you compare 3 and 5 to what we are seeing right now?
3 was real big. I think that because of, it's hard to say. We wouldn't be able to judge this one until it's over, and then probably in 20 years. Because one of the things with 3 was very, very big the day it happened. But it grew bigger, because they decided to, make that the story that it was the greatest show of all time and the greatest match of all time and all that. So if they decide afterwards to say that Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns is that for 20 years, it will be that, because that's how they will write their history. So it's kind of up to them, as far as like how they, in the future. As far as 5, you did have the great storyline going in and everything like that, but they're it's the day of. I feel this is bigger than that one, than 5 the day of, but yeah, I would say that. 5 was really, really big too, though. Yeah.
There's a 1984 Observer where you basically lay out Hogan and Andre for 87, and you're like, yeah, this is exactly what needs to happen. This is what needs to happen, and voila, you make a whole bunch of money. Yeah, 1984.
Well, that wasn't being a genius or anything. I just thought that was really, that was really obvious. I just remember in the AWA, when Hogan was really hot in the AWA before he ever went to WWF, I was like the big money here is freaking turning Andre heel and going against Hulk Hogan in all these cities, and it would draw like crazy, So, but they never did it because they always kept Andre as a babyface. And that a lot of that was Vince. Vince's father. Vince's father was always, Andre has to be a babyface. When Andre was let loose, I was watching Andre in New Japan as a heel. And I just thought that he was so much more entertaining and interesting and could have much bigger matches, and he was more serious of a wrestler as a heel because he was doing the singles matches with Inoki for the championships and things like that. And while he did do, matches with Ric Flair and Harley Race on occasion, and maybe even Terry Funk for the world title, it was like I didn't find it as serious because I think that everybody knew that somehow he wasn't going to win. Whereas with Inoki, because of the way Inoki was pushed and everything like that, it was like Andre could win and Inoki could win, and most likely to be a double count out.
Andrew, do you have any last thoughts before we get out of here?
No, this was a blast. I had a great time.
So
I love the Q&As that you do on Observer Radio. So for me, this was like I'm sitting back and I'm just listening.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I'm glad folks got to ask the questions that they get to ask Dave. Appreciate the super chats. Appreciate everyone tuning in, not only live on YouTube, but also listening to the podcast version of this show. So I want to say thanks to Dave. Thanks for doing this. I know you are you're already in heavy Observer writing time.
Oh yeah,
and you made some time for us today. So thanks to Dave, and also for Andrew. I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.